Hey everyone, we're going to do a tutorial here about building our own rig for our character. And by building a rig, I mean we're going to use Cat, and it's going to do a lot of the work for us, which is awesome. So let's start that. You have your character here. Before you start this, please make sure you follow the tutorial right before this one called Setting Up Your Character for Rigging. It's really important that you do. There's a lot of just things about scaling and resetting your character that you're really going to need to know. So I'm going to assume you've done that and you're ready to go on to this step. So basically what we're going to build is a bone structure for our dude. And that way we'll be able to move him around and do all that kind of stuff. But before we do that, we got to just make the stuff. So let's do that right now. So go into your create panel, go into helpers, and under helpers, little measuring tape looking thing here. By default, it'll be set on standard, so just click that, go down and select cat objects, and select cat parent. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to build some kind of presets or some start up our rig. What you're going to do is in your perspective viewport, just kind of try and click somewhere in the center of your character or of the grid here, and just drag out this little icon here for your rig, and just kind of make it a little bit bigger than your feet. And make sure it's centered to the grid. So with it selected, just zero it out on the bottom here. Just right click the arrows, make sure it's nicely set to 0, 0, 0. Now with that selected, I'm just going to save my file here. I'm going to go to the modify panel, and you'll see we have our object here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick one of these base rigs. We could build our own from scratch, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to use one of the basic ones that exist. So kind of go through here and try and pick one that matches your character ideally. Most of you will probably just be using the base human, which will look like this. Something like that. If I just going to hide my character for now just so you can kind of see. But there's definitely some other ones you can use. If you take a look here, we'll just I'll just create a couple other ones if you want to see what they're like. You might want to take a look at some of the different ones, see if they fit your characters better. They're pretty cool. I mean, they're definitely a good starting point if you're doing like an ape or something. Right, pretty awesome. Clown. I don't know why Clown gets his own, but he's pretty cool too. Crab, right? So they got some pretty awesome looking rigs here. We're going to start with this character base human one right here. So let me just get back in there. So I've selected my base human one. So there's a few just first setup steps that you're going to have to take. Number one is just name your thing. So, goblin base. There you go. And so now that you have it named, we're going to have to align this character to our model and get the height and size right. So I'm going to select on my model here. I'm going to hit Alt-X just to make him see-through. And I'm also going to freeze him. Now if I freeze him right now, if I go right-click and freeze selection, oh hey, it actually stayed. Mine went see-through as well. It stayed see-through. If yours doesn't, you can go into this display panel here, and sometimes show frozen and gray. This one's on, but it still works fine. If it doesn't work, take a look at the display settings. Make sure they match this guy, and they should be okay. But with Alt-X on, you can go to freeze selection, and that way you won't be able to select your model by accident. So go back into your cat rig, select the triangle on the bottom, go into your modify menu here, and what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the cat unit ratio. And what we're going to try and do is just adjust the height of this character to match our own. Now, I know most of you are probably going to want to jump in there and just adjust them to be, the same height. But that's not actually what we're going to be aiming for. We're going to be actually aiming for the hips to be in the right location. So we want to align that to, more or less where our hips are going to be as best as we can. So something like that. And all this other stuff we can adjust. It's not a big deal. but you definitely want your hips where they need to be. So after that, we're going to go through and just start adjusting our character one by one, and trying to get this rig matched up to our dude. So I'm going to select these little goblin-based platforms. You can see it'll take, by naming this this name here, it has changed the names of all the bones to actually reflect that, which is really awesome. So I'm going to take this and I can move it forward and back. I'm going to try and just move it forward just to match my feet quite a bit, like that. And if I select this bone here, this is that bone right there. If you go here, that's the ankle setup, or the foot, I guess. And what you can do, there's a little area here called number of digits, and it's set to 0. This will allow you to add some toes to your character. So I could add 2 toes to my dude if I really wanted to, because he's barefoot. If I really wanted to add some really custom animations of his toes, but I'm only just gonna add 1. I just want a toe so he can bend stuff when he walks and things like that. I'm not gonna worry too much about having you know, a ton of toes. And I'm just gonna adjust this just to kind of match my foot a little better. I'm going to select this guy here, and in the modify panel I could adjust the length and the width. You'll see height and width and stuff like that. So just kind of try and match it up as best you can, and then select your toes and try and you know, adjust the height and the length of your toes here. Right, and try and figure out where this should bend, and it should kind of bend, you know, right around the ball of the foot there. So try and get that working pretty well. And you can select this leg here, and if you need to, you know, rotate your character a little bit, if your legs are a little off, just try and do your best to mimic your mesh, right? So if my feet are rotated a little, make sure the rig is rotated like that. Make sure your kneecaps are where they need to be. And we're going to be editing the shape of all these bones. So their shape isn't overly important right now, but what is incredibly important is where these joints are. So this is actually where all your bends are going to happen. So you're really going to want these to match, you know, where your ankle is, where all that, where all the joints are going to happen. So say here, if my ankle is going to be, you know, somewhere around here, like that. I guess I should keep this down here. Alright, there we go. So again, just try your best to match up your character here to where all your joints are going to be. So let's see, my knee joint is probably around there. Now I can move my my pelvis forward if I feel he's not centered really well, because he's not right now. So I'm going to move that in there. Just maybe move that guy back here a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. My character's legs are, you know, obviously a little bent, but they're not too bent. So let's just do that. Oh, I have 2 toes. Oops, I did add 2 toes, didn't I? So in here I added 1 digit, and on this toe it created 2 toes. I don't want that. I only want 1. So I'm just going to go through here and just make sure there's only, oops, that's the name. So let's just undo that a little bit. I guess it will not undo my name. Thanks a lot, Max. Big toe. Yeah, so let's do this again. 1 toe. Or I guess it's not even big toe, it's just toe. There we go, that's much better. Might just adjust the width a little bit here too with this guy. Again, the shape isn't as important, but it's always good to get that where you want it to be. There we go. That's better. So, you know, a lot of things we can kind of fix up on the rig later on, but one of the things you do not want to be fixing up is your actual bone structure, because you basically have to start over at that point. And trust me, we're going to do some really annoying work soon, and you don't want to be doing that all over. So make sure you're pretty darn happy with what you got going on in here. And I know if it's your first time rigging, it's kind of hard to know, you know, what's what, but again, try and do your best to uh, to to really understand and think about where these pivots, these little joints here. So that you see that's my pivot there. This is where my joint is going to be for my knee. So try and really figure out where all that stuff's going to be. All right, there we go. We're going to want the, you know, my legs are up here. The skeleton's probably going into here, into my hip, right? So that's kind of where that's going. I can move this even out a little more if I wanted to. I don't want to make my guy bow-legged, but, you know, just make sure that's okay. And for your other foot, just make sure you save here. For your other leg, we're not going to be redoing all the same stuff on the other leg. What you can do here is under limb setup. Oh, they're all just called foot, toe, digit 1. Cool. So in here, just select your top thigh bone here. Select this little guy here. If you hover over it, it'll say copy limb settings. And then if you select the opposite thigh, right beside it will be paste limb settings, so don't click that, but then do paste mirror limb settings, and that will take everything down on that bone, including your toe and foot and all that stuff, and mirror that. And so as long as your character is mirrored and you've put your rig centered, that'll look proper and all that. So, so that should be good for that. Next we're going to go is adjust the spine here. If you select the spine, by default it's added 4 bones. That's quite a bit. I mean, it's not too much or anything like that, but I might want to just do a little less. I might just do 3. Just 1, 2, and then there's a third one in here as well. So you're going to want to just start adjusting all these things too. Just try your best to just you know, mimic all these things here. And so you can move up your spine, make sure that, you know, that's kind of where you want it as well. Right, and the best thing you can do is try and align it with some of your geometry as well. So try and, you know, pick where there's nice curves along your body, that kind of stuff to link this up to. So I'm going to do a spine here. I'm going to take this spine, and he's kind of inside the chest bone, so I'm going to put him somewhere around there. Something like that. And then we have here, this is our rib cage. So I'm going to just extend this rib cage. You know, like that. Alright, and then we have our collarbone here. We take a look at where this starts, or the arm. I might actually take this guy down a little. Try to figure out where my neck starts there too. Select your arm and just try and put that where you feel your arm joint would be. So, you know, we'd have our arm going in here, probably hooking up with the collarbone, somewhere around there. And start getting your arm into place. You could actually just select this guy here and just move him. And, you know, rotate. And if rotation becomes kind of weird, if you're stuck on view up here, just turn that to local, and you'll be able to locally rotate these things. It'll probably be a lot easier for you. You can do that with move as well. There you go. Just try and align your hands here, and we'll go back to the clavicle in a little bit and readjust that. we go. Alright, that looks pretty good. We got our arm up in here, maybe even a little lower. Right, something like that. And we can do the same thing. We can select our clavicle, hit copy, select the other clavicle, and hit paste mirror, and that should mirror right across. Alright, I'm going to take my spine here. It's going to make it a little bit bigger too. I kind of screwed up my arms here a little, but that's okay. Actually, I might just keep that as is. Alright, if you select your palm here, you'll be able to add however many fingers your character needs. So if you have 4 fingers, type in 4, and then get to work. Just start adjusting. Whoops, should not have done that. Alright, there we go. Alright, actually, that one's not very centered. Alright, there we go. And just do that to all your fingers. Again, really pay attention to where your joints are. Right, I'm putting mine right in between these 2 edges here so they'll bend all nice. There we are. Alright, we're getting there. Alright, how's that looking? That's okay. Might be a little... Alright, here we go. So that's that. So you could select your palm, do the same thing, copy, click over here, paste mirror. Oh, really? You won't do that? Let's try a higher limb. copy, paste mirror, much better. Alright, there we go. We have our chest there. And let's adjust the neck bones here. Let's take, how many neck bones do we have? We got 2. So let's move this guy forward a little. So we'll have our first neck bone kind of controlling. You know, actually, I'm not even going to bother with 2. My guy's got such a stubby neck, I'm probably just going to do 1. Go. Just copy, paste over. Take my neck bone down here, head bone, somewhere. Let's see, where do I want my head tilt to be? Probably somewhere around behind the ears or so. Right, something like that. Your spine's kind of in the back of your neck here. So something like that there. Just the head a little. There we go, and now we have a finished rig. It's pretty basic right now, but it'll do the job for what we need. So the one thing we're going to do though is you'll notice that a lot of these arm pieces, leg pieces, they're very different size and shape than our mesh. And, you know, that's not a terrible thing, but it's not a great thing either. So, just 1 second here. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make them kind of encompass our mesh like we did with our high poly and low poly. The reason for that is when we start doing weight painting on this stuff and try and actually skin the mesh to these bones and make the bones affect the mesh, it's going to make our job a lot easier. It's going to do a much better job auto-assigning things and take away some of the work from you to have to do manually, which, trust me, you don't want to do a lot of because it's the worst. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start at the toes here, and what you're going to do is take each of these objects one by one, apply an edit poly modifier on it. If you don't have a stack open like I do, you can always go to here, configure stack, configure modifier sets, and you can drag on whatever things you like. So if for instance you wanted to have an edit poly, you just take that, drag it on to here, hit OK, and then over here you just need to go to show buttons. It might look like this in the beginning. If you go to show buttons, it'll show all these guys, and that way you won't have to keep clicking this thing and searching for stuff all the time. You can make your own sets. You can even save them out and stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. You can save, you know, Alex save, and you could have a whole bunch and all that. So pretty sweet. So I want you to apply an edit poly to one of these bones. Oh, I applied 2. And I want you to just try and model this guy out a little bit. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but I want you just to kind of model it out so it encompasses your model. Now, an important thing to remember is the pivots that you have established on this pivot here is not going to change how we were, changing the shape of these bones before. If I take this and I move it in here, this pivot's still going to be back here, and it's going to be kind of funky to move around, so it'll still look like this. So just make sure you keep in mind that those pivots are not going to change, and they're kind of set in stone at this point. So don't move on to this stage if you're not happy with the pivots. But if you are, then go through and just start kind of again modeling up your dude, and just trying to kind of best represent these bones as your character. When you're done with a particular bone like this one, do not right click on it and go to convert edit poly. Right click on the actual edit poly modifier and go to collapse to. you'll get this little thing here, and you just do don't show this message again if you want, and do hold in yes, and then you'll be okay. And then that way it won't break any of your bones, because if you just convert it to an editable poly, it'll just it'll mess up and it won't be a bone anymore. So that's no good. So I'll go through and just do that to these other guys here. I'm just gonna go through and try and do my best here to so my pivot is you know, always remember where your pivot is here. Right, something like that. And feel free, you know, you could always add more polygons. Just select a couple edges, hit connect. Fortunately, your editable poly shortcuts won't work in here. You'll have to set up edit poly shortcuts, which is kind of silly, but it's just how Max seems to work. There we go. And if you like, you can add as you know, many or as little polygons as you feel you need for your character and for these bones here. Sometimes you might have to go through and readjust some things. You can always scale edges if you want them to be parallel to the ground. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of fully encompass my leg here. Just in like a really basic way. And then I'm going to start adding you know, some details. I'm probably going to start adding some edges the other way too, just because my legs are really round. I want to try and best represent them. So I'm just selecting this edge here, I'm hitting ring, and then I'm just hitting connect. The cool thing is when you're done modeling all this stuff, that copy paste tool still works, even though you've added polygons and have actually edited quite a bit. It does not care about any of that. It'll just take whatever the heck you did to it and copy it over onto the other side, which is pretty awesome. Not having to do this twice or trying to, you know, fudge a different way of doing it. Now, if my character was simpler, I could actually use my actual character model to make some of these bones. I could just cut them apart into little pieces, kind of like the shape or kind of chunks as these, and then just replace them as is. But my character's pretty high poly. I don't want to have a really high poly rig. I want to just have like a simplified version of it like this, and this will be, you know, good enough for what I'm doing here. So there you go. There's some pants and some legs there. I'm gonna go through to the other side, or the next chunk here. And just rinse and repeat. Same old. Move out. There you go. So the top of the legs might be a little bit different. You don't want to leave them as just a box, because this is, if you imagine that your bone is going from here to here, you know, you can kind of see where your pivot is from there to there. That's fine, but if you kind of try and think about what your leg is affecting, it's not really, you don't want it to affect only the things that are inside this box right now. Right? You don't want to like affect this center part of the belt and all that. So if you go to your front viewport and select those verts and just kind of move them down here, you're going to want to just kind of try and mimic this a little bit to your legs. So I kind of go from my belt to my hips there, or to my the crotch area. Just kind of right down the center, and then I'm just going to round these guys out. Connect, ring, connect. All right, move them in. Now try and make them kind of line up with what you had going on the bottom of your leg there. There we go. You want to give a little bit of space in between them too. Just be as clean as you can be with this model. Alright, there we go. Try and just round those out a little bit like that. Perfect. Alright, I'm going to add one more edge down across all these guys. And just move this out a little. Just a little bit. Alright, there we go. Collapse that. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it over onto the other side. And there you go. See, it copied all my edits there. Alright, moving on to the pelvis. So we're going to move on to the pelvis, and same kind of thing. So you're going to want to fill in this gap here that you have from your legs. So this one might be a little trickier, but let's do what we can here. So I'm going to connect, and actually I'm probably going to just shrink it down a little bit at first, just to kind of match up to the side of the legs there. Just like that. You can actually select the face here and just scale it in a little. Alright. Just going to do something like that here. Just kind of try and match it up to my legs. There we go. And just going to just continue from there. Might actually add an edge right down the center. It's nice having that see-through mesh underneath. You can kind of see when this stuff starts popping out. That's when you're doing all right. So I'm probably going to add another edge here and here. I'm just going to start bringing these guys right down. and you might want to just add a little bit of a curve to this top part here. Or just follow your belt or whatever your hip is. I think I'm just actually going to follow my belt upwards like that. There we go. Alright, there we go. Let's just bring the center down here. There you go. If you're getting some weird kind of collapsing, you might want to just give that a nice cut across. Give yourself an extra vert in the middle. You do that for these guys too if you need to. All right. There we go. We got a nice little diaper form. Oops. Collapse that down. Hit save. And you see, you can always test to see if your stuff's acting like a bone. See if your stuff is kind of animating how it's supposed to. Make sure you always undo any of these movements. You don't want to mess up your mesh permanently. Alright, and so we're just going to continue doing the same thing for all these different pieces here. Just kind of continue on through, adding, chunks and all that kind of stuff. And so the one weird one you might kind of see here is this one bone here we have going through our collarbone, sorry, our rib cage. So you're going to have to kind of best decide what to do with him. He might act a little funny, so you might want to just add that right in the center. We'll see what we can do with it as we go through there, but it's a funky kind of little bone to work with. So let's just keep going. Connect. There we go. Alright, and use your previous mesh as a guide to where to add polygons. Notice I'm doing 2 sides at a time just because they're symmetrical, but I can't use symmetry as is. I would have to detach all this stuff and kind of start from there, so I don't really want to do that. Just gonna check where my pivot is there. Might actually, before I continue with this, I might actually lower this down a little bit and might lower that, and then I might lower this spine just a little bit there. to get myself a little bit of extra space. Alright, there we go. That's looking pretty good. Looks like we'll just need an edge here and an edge there. Again, I'm kind of using this this previous, or the pelvis bone as a guide of, you know, where I need polygons and edges and all that kind of stuff. You can always scale on one axis if you want to move things uniformly on something that is symmetrical like this mesh. It's a nice way of kind of getting around certain things. Alright, and then we're going to just take this front part here and just kind of butt it up against his abs there. So the pivot's kind of up here, so we could probably just mimic this. Actually, no, I guess we'll probably mimic something like that. Alright, and we continue. It's a bit of a painstaking process. We could have just left it as regular kind of bones and things like that, but I guess trust me, this will save you some time in the future. And it just looks good. It looks awesome when you're finally animating and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to grab things and understand what your character is going to be doing if your rig actually represents your character properly. All right, so same process as before. Connect, connect. There we go. All right, and this little guy here, we're going to, oh, Forgot to collapse this down. Make sure I do that to all these guys here. So he's going to be really, really long. We're going to just shrink him down a little bit. Oh, I put on soft select. So we're going to just shrink him down. There we go. And we'll build him up to around the armpits or so. Go. Just gonna move this out a little bit. Let's taper it out. Again, trying to follow just the curves of the body. And under the armpits here. Alright, there we go. And then the rib cage here, we'll just do the same thing. Go. So you're gonna, for this guy here, when we're matching him up to the arms, you're gonna want to follow your edge flow of your arms and your armor, whatever you got. You want these bones to best represent that mesh again, all of your mesh flow and all that stuff. Okay, some of that. Alright, there we go. Again, match that up. Alright, and then for the neck, you're actually probably going to want to dip it down a little bit. I think I had mine up a little, but you're going to want to have that kind of follow this contour here. So we're going to have to add a little bit more interesting geometry on this side. Okay, so something like that there should be okay. Get that in. So let's add an edge this way. That way we could add some chest sections here. Right, there we go. Again, make sure you try your best to follow one of those edges around your shoulders here. And I know my character's kind of asymmetrical. I'm not going to bother with that for now. I'm just going to again try and do the same thing. I'm just going to try and mimic the chest over the armor. I don't really care about the armor for now. That's not a hard thing to skin on afterwards if I need to kind of fix it up and stuff like that. So not too worried. There we go. Gonna add same thing. One side, other side. Then we have our traps here. Oops, undid the wrong thing here. Go. And I'm just going to take all these back pieces here and just kind of move them out there. Move out these middle pieces so they're around like that. Alright, and there we go. That should be pretty good. Oops. I'm going to collapse that down. And just same process for the arms there. Don't worry about the clavicles there. We'll kind of take a look at those when we're skinning. This guy's a little thin. I might have made him a little thicker here, and maybe made this guy a little thinner, but that's okay. We'll see how that turns out. Alright, there we go. Alright, so same kind of thing with as we did with the legs. You're going to want to take your arms and kind of match them up to, to that general flow there. And again, feel free to add, you know, however many kind of edges and polygons you're going to need for your model to best represent it. I'm realizing my chest kind of collapses in here a little bit, especially on this side. I don't think I pushed it out quite enough, so I might have to go through and just readjust that a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just realize that some parts not as good as you thought they were. Just got to go through, readjust. Alright, there we go. Oh, that guy got out of hand a little. Alright. We'll just go through. We'll do the same thing for the arm here. Just again, try and match it up as best as you can. Right. Take a little bit of finagling here. Just kind of go through like that. And same thing, just do your fingers just across like that, finger by finger. And then when you're done, your one hand, you can again, I don't know, let's collapse this down to that. Copy and paste. All right. And then same thing with the neck here. I have my one neck bone, so I'm just going to kind of fill it in to match this. And then my head, I'm going to kind of round out just to kind of match that a little bit. And that'll be our rig. So I'm not going to bother you. This is already an hour-long video. You're not going to have to watch me go every bit by bit. But just go through, do the same thing if you're able to get this far. The rest of the stuff is just pretty much rinse and repeat. And go on from there. And once you're done that, we're going to be ready to skin this character and get the bones applied to that mesh.